This is Dan Bolen, and I'm host of the podcast, The Courage to Be Courageous. We all have fear in our life, but we also have courage. And this podcast is about embracing the fear and use courage to get through it. So I'm looking forward to having you all continue to listen to my podcast. You could go to my website, which is www.danbolen.com. And you can listen to the podcast there. As you know, I'm doing once a week. You'll have a podcast of a great guest with some fascinating and riveting stories. So we encourage you to do that. They also will be on YouTube. And that is a great way. Just go to put YouTube, Courage to Be Courageous by Dan Bolen, and you'll be able to see them on as well. And I want to invite everybody that has a story that they would like to have the courage to share their story with me, to contact me on my email, and that's danbolen@cox.net. I have two wonderful guests with me today. These are some of my very close personal friends. It's Cam Davis and Sam Rodanzo. And let me tell you a little bit about how I met them. I actually met them on a cruise back probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And I had a chance to meet them. I thought they were an incredible couple. I was not out as gay. I was married at the time. But I was so impressed with the way that they carried themselves, the way that the kindness and the things that they showed me and my wife at that time. And so I kept in touch with them. And when I did come out as gay, they were my first gay supporters. And I found a family in Sam and Cam. And I just want to thank them so much for being actually my first gay supporter in my life. And they'll always be very special to me as well. So Cam and Sam, welcome to the interview on my podcast. It's nice having both of you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, it's great being with you, Dan.
Oh, thank you guys both for doing that as well. Well, just give you a little bit of background. You're going to find this is a big, powerful story, not only of what they've been through as a couple. They've been together 36 years, 26 years, and then 10 years married. So they've been together 36 years. I think you're going to find it's a powerful podcast. They've had a lot of things to go through. And I think one of the things that'll stick in my mind, hopefully my podcasters, is perseverance. Being able to show perseverance in their life. So we'll talk a little bit about Cam Davis. He has a bachelor's degree in poli-science, psychology, and English. And then he got his JD degree and then went back also and got his MBA. And he's presently managing director of investments for Wells Fargo Advisors. So we are really encouraged to hear a little bit more about his career and how he got where he's at today. Sam, of course, has a bachelor's degree in advertising and marketing from Ferris State University in Eaton Rapids, Michigan. And his last position was a managing director of Maniacs, Maniacs, I guess it is, which was his own firm. So he's been in advertising and media for a good part of his life as well. So welcome, you guys. It's so nice to have you. And these are my closest friends. And thank you so much for doing the podcast. So let's talk a little bit about how you knew. Let's talk with Cam first. How you knew you were different, how you knew you were gay, how that all came about. Tell us a little bit about the history on that.
Well, I think I always knew I was attracted to men. I love Tarzan movies.
So did I.
And, as I was growing up, I noticed the guys. I liked women too, but I always had an attraction to men. And I resisted that because I wanted to eventually marry, be a father, and live a conventional life. And so I did everything I could to get myself ready for a life like I had lived with my parents.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did you? What was the? But you knew you were different. But was it society knew that they wouldn't accept you as gay, and that's kind of the traditional thing, is get married, have kids, and that's what we're expected to do.
I don't think it was society. I think it was me. I think I didn't accept me as gay. And so I did everything I could to suppress that. And I did everything I could to encourage the heterosexual aspects of my life. I lived with a woman for about a year. I dated, and I did what I could to try to live a heterosexual existence. But I always had an attraction also to men. I had my first gay experience when I was about 23 years old, maybe 24 years old. And I found that to be a pleasant experience. And then when I moved to California, I had a friend that was gay who talked about his life. He appeared to have a good life. And so I decided to go to a gay bar one night, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. So it was at that time then you've been fighting yourself on being gay.
That's
so
right.
It was at that time you began to realize I got to embrace who I am and move forward with it. Was that the time, do you think, Cam, was when you realized that?
I think so. It was a very different time for being gay. This was in the late 70s, early 80s, and people hid themselves. I was very much in the closet. I was working at a very large firm. I was an attractive young man, and I was in demand with both the women and the men.
Right.
So it was. I lived a dual life. It suppressed my gay life. I didn't talk about it at work. I didn't talk. I was very much in the closet, really, until the late 1990s. And when things started to shift and acceptance got greater, I found myself willing to admit that I was gay and talk about my life.
And what do you think that was? In the 90s, you say?
Yeah, I think it was probably the late 90s. I think most people assumed I was gay. A 43-year-old man, unmarried, and I was, kind of a catch. I had a good job. I was good looking. I had some money, and so, I think even now, like Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, is a black man running as a Republican in the Senate. He's single. And Lindsey Graham, I think everyone assumes those guys are gay. And I do too.
Interesting, yeah. So you actually went through the AIDS crisis. And I think you mentioned that one of your partners, you were together, I think, from 1982 to 1984. And that he actually ended up, after the relationship ended, I think you said he died of AIDS in 1989?
That's right. We got together in 1982 when I was 29 and he was about 25, and broke up in 84. But the reason we broke up was the AIDS crisis was going on. He had a drug problem. And he was quite promiscuous, but everyone was promiscuous. I was promiscuous too. Mm-hmm. But I was afraid of contracting AIDS. I told him that I feared that he would die of AIDS. And I did everything I could to try to get him to get off drugs. And I was not successful. And I decided I did not want to continue that relationship. Although I kept in touch with him. And as he was dying, Sam and I were actually traveling to see him. He wrote me a very nice letter. Unfortunately, we didn't arrive on time. He passed away in Las Vegas.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Sorry. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Cam. And we're going to come back and talk about the relationship that you and Sam have a little bit more. But I want to go back to Sam now and talk to him. So, Sam, you knew you were different at 5 years old.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was born in December, so I actually started like kindergarten when I was 6 years old. So in that year, my mother was working, and on the street we lived in, there were a lot of children, and there was about 5 of us boys, and we were always together. And we were in the basement one day, and I just took down my pants.
Okay.
I can't believe I did that, but so yeah, even I just knew that I was gay. And interesting that when my mother finally accepted things, she had said that she had an inkling that I was gay, and that was as an infant.
Mm-hmm.
So
she thought you were gay even as an infant.
yeah. And
Interesting. Mom always knows certain things. Yeah, they know things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you knew you were younger, but you didn't want to be gay.
No.
And because you ended up eventually getting married, and you were engaged for a while and then got married. Tell us a little bit about that. I think that's such a fascinating story.
Right. Well, like him, I was bound and determined to be straight. And so I met Linda like the first day of college. And my roommates and suite mates kept telling me that she was interested in me. And I kept, nah. And next thing you know, she's bringing over food. And so one thing led to the other. And so we were together from 1976 until 1982. We were supposed to get married in 82. And I had decided, because I never had a gay experience. So I decided before I get married, I better find out if I really am. And I did, and I just couldn't get married at that time. I broke off the engagement.
Did you tell her that you were attracted at that time to men? And that's why you broke the engagement off?
Yes.
And how did she respond?
Oh, she was devastated. And but luckily it was before the invitations went out and all that. So we just kind of went our separate ways after that.
Mm-hmm. And then eventually you moved in with a gentleman that turned out not to be a good partner for you.
Right. Yes.
And tell us a little bit how that got you back to marrying Linda.
Yes, after my first experience, which was wonderful, so I thought, you're gay. But I met another man, and shortly after he moved in with me. And I come to find out like he's manic depressive. So he's either real high or real low. And it was just unbearable. I mean, he was throwing dishes, and I even had sex with a woman because he wanted to see what it was like. And so at that time, we didn't have the internet. So I started writing Linda letters saying that, I'm ready to get married now. And she had a friend, her best friend actually, that had a very similar experience to mine, where they were about to get married, and he had some gay experiences and was trying to figure out if he was gay or straight. And he turned out straight, at least as far as I know. And so Linda kind of used that as a gauge, because again, we had all that time together. We had great sex, and
of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we got re-engaged.
So my question to you on this, because I want our listeners to understand, you realized you were gay, you admitted you were gay, and then you had a very bad experience. Why did you go back and marry her?
Because I had decided in my head if that's what the gay lifestyle was going to be like, I was interested.
Yes.
And I shouldn't have based it off just that, but I did.
Uh-huh. So you got married, and you were married how many years?
Not even a year.
Not even a year.
No, it was a disaster from the start. And I wanted to release her. I knew it was very painful at the time, but I wanted her to get on with her life as quickly as possible, and to find someone and to get married. And finally, about 13 years ago, she did. She's happily married now.
Excellent. It had to be painful for both of you.
Yeah.
And I think courageous on your part to finally admit and come forward and knew your authentic self and give her the freedom to let her go as well.
And she outed me to my parents. And, that was understandable. I wasn't mad about that. But then, later on, I had to deal with them about being gay.
So she outed you to your parents. So you didn't get the freedom to do that. She took that freedom away from you.
Yeah, she did it for me.
Yeah. Why do you think she did that? Do you think she was just angry and upset, or?
Yeah, I think she didn't know where else to go. I mean, I didn't literally kick her out, but I said, it's over. And I think she was, she just reacted. And
devastated, yeah.
The closest people she knew, were my parents. So she drove down to San Diego. And like Cam was saying also, though, in my work in the 80s until the late 90s, I had to hide it too, because you think in advertising they'd accept it, but a lot of people they didn't at that time. So I was hiding as well.
So it ended up that it brought you and Cam together in California. And Sam, I want you to tell us how you got to California, where you were applying for the position, but she encouraged you not to come, but you did it anyway.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So right after college, I had come out and I thought I wanted to live in San Diego and trying to get my first job in advertising. And I realized that market was very small. And so it was very tight-knit. And usually that's where you go towards the end of your career, not at the beginning of it. So I came back and got a job in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I started subscribing to the West Coast edition. At that time, it was a very popular weekly advertising magazine. And so I thumbed through it every week, and I saw an ad for an assistant media planner in Los Angeles. So I immediately called, and she was kind and everything, but she said, I've interviewed like 23 people already, and I'm pretty sure who I'm going to hire. And I said, well, it's your time and my money. And then she accepted the interview. So when the interview came up, I called her and I asked her, well, should I take the train to Los Angeles or should I fly? And she went, again, I just don't think, and I said, it's just, again, it's your time, my money. So I ended up taking the train.
From San Diego.
And, I had arrived very early. And so I was pacing up and down Wilshire Boulevard till the time of the interview. And then I finally decided to go up, and sit in a lounge for a while, the reception area. And she came out, she was for another person she was going to interview. And she said, God, you're early. Yes, I'm early. So, but when I got into the interview, we like clicked immediately, and I was hired like in the first 5 minutes.
Wow, that's an incredible story. So that got you to California, got you in the
That's how
area.
I got the yes. That's how I got.
Excellent. Now, you and Cam, you met at a gay bar.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit how that occurred and how it took off from there.
Okay.
All
Both
right.
of you can comment on that.
Let me do that.
Okay, Cam's going to comment on it.
I was on a date with someone else, and we went to a restaurant called the Golden Bull, which was a gay restaurant in Santa Monica Canyon. And down the street from the Golden Bull was a restaurant called it was a bar called the SS Friendship, the oldest gay bar in Los Angeles. And had the same owner. The owner for the Golden Bull was also the owner for the Friendship Bar. And so I was on a date with someone that I'd had a date with a year before, but we hadn't been together for a long time. And it must have gone better for him than it did for me because he got and we finally got together for dinner, but we found out we didn't really have much in common. So after dinner, we went to the bar, and there was Sam sitting at the bar, talking to the bartender, having a great time, laughing and joking. And I sort of butted in the conversation, and I kind of very much enjoyed talking to Sam, found him attractive and interesting and fun. And so I developed a sudden illness that required me to immediately get rid of my date, take him back to my apartment where he had his car, then I drove back to the bar and struck up with Sam. And he can tell you what happened while I was gone and where it went.
Tell us, Sam, what happened.
Well, first of all, I was supposed to be in San Diego because it was my mom's birthday. And we were in an argument or something, so I didn't go. And this little birdie in my head kept saying, I was watching the Golden Girls, for God's sakes, but this little birdie kept saying, go take a shower and go out. And it kept doing that, and finally said, okay, but I'm not going to go to West Hollywood. I'm going to go someplace closer. And I remember the SS Friendship. So I said, I'll go there. So I went there, and the bartender was very friendly. And then after some time, Cam and his date came in, and like he said, he kept interrupting the conversation that we were having. And so, Cam and I'll go back. While Cam was gone to come back, and I said, well, I have one more beer, and if he comes back, fine. If not, fine, But something told me he was coming back, so I waited. And
he came back.
And he came back. So, but the whole time he was gone, the bartender was telling me.
The bartender was trying to pick him up.
Yeah, he was trying to pick me up, and I didn't catch on, And he was telling me, you don't want to mess around with Cam. He's been sleeps around, and he's not a good guy. It
was all truth. The bartender knew I slept around because I'd slept with him.
Okay.
So probably everybody else in the bar except Sam at that point.
So after a while,
that's interesting. So that's when you came together, eventually moved in together, and here you are 36 years later in a great relationship. Now, one of the things I really want to talk about with Cam and Sam is the triumphs that they have been through. Some of them, in a sense, are tragedies, how they were able to persevere and get through those. I want to go back with Cam and talk about you being in a tax attorney, just give me a history of how you started, because I think you told me you've actually had 3 careers.
Right.
Explain that to our listeners.
Well, okay. So when I completed my education, my law degree and my MBA, I went to work in the tax department of a large CPA firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers. It was then just Pricewaterhouse, eventually merged with Coopers. And I became a specialist in taxation law. I actually am a board certified specialist in taxation law. It's a separate bar exam here in California. You have to prove your experience and everything. But that's what I did. And while I was doing that, which I did for 4 years, one of my clients was trying to sell itself, and it was a company called Quad 8 Electronics. And Quad 8 Electronics made sound mixing consoles for professional audio, radio records, and television. In fact, virtually all of the movies done in Los Angeles were done by Quad 8 mixing consoles. And so the owner wanted to sell the company, and the company had gone down a lot in sales. And I decided to try and buy the company. And I successfully bought it when I was 29.
Wow.
So I owned Quad 8 Electronics in North Hollywood, California, and learned the business. And while I was there, I got well known in the business. And Litton Industries was trying to get out of the motion picture equipment business, and they owned a company called Westrex, which was Western Electric Export Corporation. Westrex invented sound for motion pictures and got the first Academy Award for Technical Achievement in 1928.
Wow.
And I ended up buying Westrex and combining the companies into Quad 8 Westrex. And I owned those companies from the age of 29 until I was 32. And I sold the companies to Mitsubishi. But when I was 29, I was rich and famous. And by the time I was 32, I was just famous because basically, I was the largest customer of my bank. I didn't know I was the largest customer when I needed to borrow more money. And remember, this was in the 80s and interest rates were 18%.
Yes, 18%. Yeah.
But they couldn't loan me more money because I was their largest customer. I was at their lending limit. And so I had no choice but to sell the company because we were running out of cash. And so Mitsubishi had approached me and basically bought the company at a fire sale price. By the time I was done suing them and the bank and everybody else, I got back my original investment.
Wow.
But it was my first major failure in life. This was before I met Sam. This was in 1985. I met Sam in 1987.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So then you pulled yourself up from the bootstraps, and what did you do after that then? I think you went back into attorney work.
I became the head of the tax department of a large local CPA firm, and I was there for 11 years. While I was there, the first real estate crisis hit in California in 1990, and the firm was about 1/3 dependent upon real estate clients, and so the firm shrunk. And I realized that for me to make the kind of money I wanted to make, I was going to have to generate business for the firm. So I learned how to market. I took over the firm's marketing and did a lot of networking and became quite well known in the business community. And while I was there, I became so well known in the business community that I was approached by Bernstein Global Wealth Management to come to work for them. And so I changed careers again at age 43. They sent me to New York. I trained for 4 months and I became a financial advisor. And I was at Bernstein for 16 years, ended up with a very large client base. I had 220 clients at $1.6 billion of assets under management.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, that took a lot of courage and perseverance by losing the company and all of a sudden having to go back into the work and building yourself back up and doing it by marketing and getting business and being able to do that. That's pretty remarkable, Cam.
That's okay, because it brought me to my second failure, which was the financial crisis of 2007 to 2010. I'd become so successful as a financial advisor that the firm offered me all kinds of incentives and stock and things like that. And so they kept on paying me in their stock, which got up to $98 a share. And they gave me the first stock in 2000. And so 23 years later today, that stock is $32 a share.
Oh my.
So that was not good. And then when the financial crisis hit, my client base went down. And so I was making about $1.2 million when I went into the financial crisis a year. And I had already voluntarily lowered my salary, $400,000 a year, to go into a deferred comp plan that they offered me. So I invested a lot of money in the deferred comp plan, $2.8 million. In the financial crisis became $1 million. And,
wow.
And so then I had to reinvent myself again. And I left that firm, went to JP Morgan in 2012.
Wow.
I did that out of necessity. And by that time, I was almost 60 years old. And I had prostate cancer twice. I was getting radiation treatments when I actually made my recurrence of the prostate cancer. And so that's how I reinvented myself the second time.
Wow, that's remarkable. I mean, such a lesson for people that are listening to this. When you're down, you can always get back up. You can always try again. And I can relate to so much to what Cam is saying, because remember when I started an executive search business and I had my first fall off and I went in the bathroom and I felt like I was going to throw up. And I thought, oh, wow, am I going to do this every time I have a problem? Am I going to throw up? So you learn to persevere and you learn, listen, this is my passion and I'm going to stick with it and get through it. And that took me through 7 different recessions. So I can so relate to your perseverance there as well. Well, I want to talk to Sam. And this is a remarkable story of the partnership and the love they have for each other. I believe, Sam, you've had 12 back surgeries and 2 neck surgeries. And tell us a little bit about this and how this has happened, and because you've had to persevere an awful lot as well in your health.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm 65 now, and up till I was 55, everything was fine. Then my 2-year-old dog got out of the house, was running around the street, and I went to rescue. I went to get her. And one of our neighbors had a sidewalk had a steep in it, and I tripped over that, and I tore my what is it?
Achilles heel?
Your hamstring.
My hamstring.
Oh, hamstring.
I tore my hamstring. And so shortly after that, I was, recuperating, and I kept getting this pain, so I go back to the doctor. Oh, you have a cyst on your spine. Okay. And so that really started it all. And for the last 10 years, I've been having surgeries.
Wow. I mean, 12 surgeries.
He has a congenital condition of his spine which caused it to deteriorate, and the surgeries were necessary to build basically a cage around what is now essentially a rebuilt spine, put together by his surgeon in numerous surgeries. And he's going to have more, unfortunately.
My, that is incredible. So you've had so far then 14 surgeries, 12 back and 2 neck surgeries, and you're still going to have more.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that, Sam? I mean, where are you at mentally with that? Because, with our health is so important. It's a big part of our life. And how are you dealing with that? And how has has your partner, your husband, Cam, help you through that?
Yeah, well, Cam's been right at my side through everything. And then actually one of the surgeries, I almost died. They put me on, not life support, ventilator. And, I woke up 2 days later. I contracted this thing where your stomach just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. And
Oh my God.
It could blow up and kill you.
It basically is the anesthesia caused his bowels to go to sleep. And this is not unusual, but it can be deadly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And so where are you at mentally right now? I mean, you've got a great partner in your life, a great husband, and I know you guys support each other, but where are you at with it mentally, Sam?
Well, actually, I've been pretty good with it because, I needed the surgeries, and I was very fortunate. I've been very fortunate because a lot of people who have this, back issue end up in a wheelchair. So I'm thankful that I haven't, and I have a really good surgeon who I trust. And so right now I'm starting to have a lot of back pain again and leg pain. So I'm not in the best place, but I'm getting through it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know. Well, our thoughts and prayers are with you to be able to do that. I know Cam was telling me a story that when you to take him to the hospital, you were on your way to get chemo for your prostate cancer.
Radiation, yeah.
Radiation.
When he fell the first time, severed his hamstring, I was busy getting radiation treatments anyway. So I dropped him off at the emergency room and I went in for my radiation treatment. It was
wow.
Convenient. I try to be efficient.
Well, you guys are so courageous, and these stories are so incredibly courageous. And the support that you guys give one another is just remarkable. And I'm so pleased to have you as my friends because you give me a sense of inspiration. You give me a sense of encouragement. And I know and that you guys speak from your heart. And I love both of you very, very deeply. I want to ask you, this is my final question for you, because they have been through so much, even in the career world and also in the health world. What would you say to our listeners if they're struggling with their health, or they're struggling with coming out, or they're struggling financially? I'd like to hear your thoughts on how your story can help individuals that are going through their story.
I think that, at least for me, the key to my success in life in general is to try to picture my life 5 years from now, from whatever age I am. When I was 25, it would be 30, and work your way backwards to get there. So you try to figure out, at least for me, the kind of life you want to lead, and then work to achieve that. And so one of the things that I wanted in this life was a great partner. I did not want to live my life alone. And so I had a couple starters, trials. And then when Sam presented himself, I needed to sell myself to Sam. It wasn't easy. He wasn't an easy buyer. And so I had to work at that, but I did work at it. And then when I was as a lawyer, I decided, I wanted to be a businessman. But I was always trying to achieve something in my life, a nice lifestyle, which I've been able to achieve. But I've always had to take a lot of chances. So I had to reinvent myself constantly and be willing to accept change and new things and challenges. And I think that liking people is really important for me. It is anyway. I'm not really that big an extrovert. Sometimes social things are difficult for me, but you wouldn't know it if you saw me because I work at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to achieve things. Like I'm involved in charity. I was the chairman of AIDS Research Alliance of America. I was chairman of Make-A-Wish of Greater Los Angeles. I'm on the board of a charity right now. And I stay involved. And I really do care about other people. And it shows, I think.
It definitely shows. And I think you made a comment too, Cam, that you're an optimist. I think you're both optimists, but you're an optimist. You're looking beyond the problem and being an optimist for something ahead and not behind you. And I think that's the key point. I think one of the things you shared that was so touching to me with your husband, Sam, is that you wanted to make sure, because he's obviously has so much severe pain and problems with, his health, that you wanted to make a good life for him as well and make sure that he's taken care of. And I just think that's so touching and shows a depth of your love that you have for him as well. And I think that is so encouraging and so powerful. It shows where your heart is and shows where your character is, Cam, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
How about you, Sam? How do you, any words you have for our listeners that you would share, that if they're going through trials and health problems and that you would like your story to be encouraging and give them a point or two to think about?
Yeah, well, you have to have faith, and I always say, it's just a saying that, it's well-known saying that if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Excuse me. And it's so true. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're not in good health, you're not going to enjoy it. So, you just got to be positive and muddle through it.
And by the way, Dan, we're Sam and Cam, but collectively we're Scam.
You're Scam.
We're Scam.
And when we're introduce ourselves.
Scam. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a pleasure to have you guys on my interview, my podcast. And we got two beautiful men here who are my best friends. And I'm so encouraged to have them on my podcast. I hope my listeners will be able to draw some encouragement from their story, perseverance, deep love for each other, and support. Thank you guys so much for being on my podcast. It's such a pleasure having you and my partner, John, and I will look forward to seeing you guys in December. We're going to be enjoying the holiday down in December with Sam and Cam. So you guys...
Looking forward to seeing you.
Yes.
You're my best friends, and you guys take care.
All right, Dan. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Bye.